We're going to have a little talk about your training log and why you want to keep a training log and why they're so incredibly useful and things that you should be putting in your training log besides just training. So in my training logs, I have a pile of them at this point. You wouldn't believe how many of them I have. And I don't even know what year I started keeping them. I guess like 2006 I started keeping them, and I have literally every single day written down from 2006 on, some way, shape, or form, or at least at the very minimum, I have some notes about the days if they are not in full detail. Most of them are in very full detail, though. So not only do I log what I ate and when I ate it, I log everything, absolutely everything. So the training, what time it started, how long I rested between sets, what I did, what weight it was, how many reps, etc. I write down how it felt even, and I write down how long the workout took. I write down, all the little details that you can think of. I write them all down. Like if I do a set of 20 and I'm like, this was easy, I make a note that this was easy. If I do a set of 20 and I felt like I was going to die, I have a note in there, like, this was really hard, felt awful. And then I even have notes about how I feel the next day. Like I woke up extremely sore or I woke up feeling good, because those things do matter. Like if you train really, really hard and the workout felt great, but then you wake up the next day and it's like, holy cow, my hips are killing me, I can't walk down the stairs, maybe those big heavy squats you did the day before might have had something to do with why your hips hurt the next day. So it's worth writing those things down. In addition, like I said, I write down everything that I consume. It doesn't matter what it is either. Whether it's medication or it's a supplement or anything like that, it goes in the log. I write down what I took and when I took it, how much I took, etc. Like, oh, I took 650 milligrams of aspirin. Like that goes into the log. And I write down a note, like I have a headache, so I took, aspirin. I'm congested, whatever, so, I took Sudafed or something. I write down the dosage. I write down absolutely everything because all of those things play a role in your training, your recovery, etc. Now, this is great once you have these logs because you can look back later on and be like, man, remember that summer I put like 20 pounds on my squat? What the hell did I do that summer? You take a look at your training, and it's like, this isn't all that different than I'm training currently. Oh, I see what was different. What was different here was like I was, whatever it was, something I was eating way more calories, or I even checked my body weight, right? I write down my body weight, and it's like, oh, well, I was a little heavier at that time. That's why my squat went up so much. Or, whatever thing it is that you're doing, man, remember that summer when I got really fast? And it's like, oh, yeah, but I also had to lose like 10 pounds to get faster. Oh, that's why I was so much faster. It's like one thing when you look back and you're like, wow, how in the hell did I ever run that mile in, close to 4 minutes? And it's like, then you look at your training log, it's like, well, I weighed 110 pounds at the time. Yeah. Or it's like, hey, man, I squatted 405. How the hell did I ever squat 405? And you look back at your training log and it's like, yeah, you weighed 185 at the time. You did it in reps instead of sleeves. That makes a big difference. If you think that there isn't a big difference between wraps versus sleeves, you probably don't get your knees wrapped properly. Big difference. So it's like, you think back and it's like, well, my best squat ever was 405. And it's like, yeah, but you're not comparing apples to apples because that was, in wraps with a belt, to like low bar. And it's, it's a totally different thing versus, oh, I'm doing high bar, no sleeves, no belt, all the way down ass to grass. Like, you can't compare your squat to your squat, if you will. These are two different things. It's like you trying to compare a completely different technique. It's like comparing your sumo deadlift to your conventional deadlift. Like, they're probably going to be different. Same thing goes for like your high bar squat compared to your low bar squat. And then if you start putting in things like knee wraps instead of sleeves and you're using a belt, like suddenly this changes things. So you need to write down in detail what you did. And the other best part of this is because I coach. And so when my athletes ask questions, oftentimes I just hand them the notebook. I'm just like, here you go. I've had athletes ask me questions. I've just mailed them the notebook. I'm like, here, like mail it back once you're done reading it. Like, it's a great resource. Like, you have this, it's basically like you writing a book, but you do it one day at a time. So instead of me having like a big long encyclopedia of training shit, you can go back and take a look and see all the stuff that you did. You can share it with other people. Like, hey, oh yeah, I did a zone diet, and people, ask you questions like, how'd you structure that zone diet? And it's like, oh, here, like, just read the notebook. Like, you can see exactly what I did. You can, learn, gain whatever you can from it. This is how I did it. Or, people ask me, well, what was your ketogenic diet like? It's like, here you go. Like, I don't have to just ballpark numbers for you. I can tell you exactly how many grams of this and how many grams of that I ate at what time and how I broke it up. You can be very exact with these things because you wrote it down while you were doing it. It's like, I don't come back at the end of the day. It's not like it's 10 p.m., I'm getting ready for bed. I know, I'll sit down and write down all the stuff I did today. No, like, it's like while I'm eating my meal, I write it down. And when I finish eating the meal, I write down the time. So, like, I know what time I started eating, I know what time I finished eating, like, and I know exactly what I ate. So, and don't get me wrong, the numbers oftentimes are ballparked. It's not like I measure things in grams. They're not that exact. So, like, when I was doing the ketogenic diet, yes, you do have to measure things because you need to make sure that you're within certain ratios. And different diets have different circumstances, right? But it's like, I look back at some of my old notebooks and it's like, 2 slices of bread and, 4 slices of turkey. What is 4 slices of turkey? I didn't weigh it. I just put 4 slices of, deli turkey on the bread. Like, it's good enough. Like, I have a general idea of what I ate, if that makes sense. Like, I ate 1 potato, or I had 2 baked potatoes. Like, did I weigh and measure the potatoes? Fuck no. But I know, like, I put a potato on the plate, so that's 1 potato. Like, I don't think potatoes vary in size that greatly that, I can't have a general idea of what I was eating. So, you look back at these things, though, and they're really useful. And like I said, especially from the coaching side of things, when athletes ask me about different programs that I did or whatever, I'm just like, here, like, this is how I did it. Like, how did you structure the workout? I'm like, here you go, just read the notebook. And you can see real quick, it's like, oh, that's exactly how I structured it. Like, there's no rest during those warm-up sets. Like, people ask me questions like that. They're like, how do you hit a heavy single in less than 10 minutes? And it's like, because I don't fucking rest. You take 10 reps at the bar, and then you start the timer. And then you put 95 on, and you squat that for, 3 to 5 reps. You put 135 on, you squat that for 3 reps. And then you go 185, 225, 275, 315. Like, and you don't rest between these sets. You work your way up, and then you hit that 315, and now you go, okay, my number for the day is 365, so you put 365 on the bar. That's when you finally fucking rest. You take those warm-up sets quick. It's just the time it takes for you to load the bar. Then you go ahead and rest 2 to 3 minutes and do that single at 365, and you're done. Like, it's not that complicated. I don't know why people overcomplicate these things. But, if you didn't see that in the notebook, then, or if someone didn't explain it to you, then you're sitting there like, how the fuck did you, well, no, you're not resting 3 minutes between a warm-up set. Like, you don't need to rest 3 minutes between 95 and 135. You don't need to rest 3 minutes between 135 and 185. I hope you don't need to rest 3 minutes to go from 185 to 225 either. Like, these are warm-up sets. These are, 60% of your 1 rep max or something like that. Like, you shouldn't need to rest from 30% to 40% to 50% to 60%. Like, only once you're getting into that 80% range do you really need to rest between sets, especially if you're just doing singles. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you put 60% on the bar and you do 15, like, yeah, you're probably gonna need to rest. But, like, if you're just doing singles on your way up to warm up to a single, you don't need to rest between singles. So anyways, that's just an example of, when you look at the way that you did a certain workout, you can see the structure behind it. It's no different than I talked about in the video where I talked about CrossFit and how I used to do it versus how, CrossFit became. I went all out on that first 400. So, like, if you have 4 rounds and it has a 400-meter run and 50 air squats, if you run that first 400 as hard as you possibly can, like, you will crash and burn. Like, that's what happens. It's supposed to happen. And the point is that when you do that, you get a different stimulus than if you pace yourself. If you pace yourself, you can get a better time. Ooh, competitive exercising. Fuck pacing yourself. We're chasing adaptation. We're trying to become better athletes. We're not trying to get the best time on a workout. Like, I'm not trying to get the best time in an exercise. I'm trying to get the most stimulus to response as I possibly can. Go all out. Like, bury yourself. Come out of that first 400 as hard as you possibly can so that when you hit those 50 air squats, your legs are screaming at you. And then push through it anyways. That's going to create a huge stimulus. Oh, yeah, but you'd have a better time if you just paced yourself. Sure. You'd have a better time if you paced yourself, but you wouldn't build up the hydrogen ions the way you can doing the intervals. And if you don't understand the point of the hydrogen ions, then I don't know what to tell you. This is like that stupid thing. I saw this dumbest fucking post the other day. I'm going to wrap up this video with something stupid. Someone made a comment that the alkaline diet is dumb, and I was like, yeah, tell me that you've never worked with high-level athletes without telling me that you've never worked with high-level athletes. Alkaline diet's real quick thing. This is your bonus points for watching the video. There's actually studies showing that people that followed like an alkaline diet, like, actually had similar responses in their ability to buffer hydrogen ions and manage lactate to using sodium bicarbonate pre-workout. Yes, baking soda is a performance-enhancing drug, or performance-enhancing supplement, performance-enhancing substance, whatever you want to call it. Baking soda can actually make you perform better. Look it up. And apparently if you follow an alkaline diet and actually get your numbers down and manage your acidosis levels, right, then apparently that can also improve your performance. So you'll find that, like, 400-meter runners, yeah, they might actually benefit from an alkaline diet, but that wouldn't matter to someone who's just, pitching their bullshit online to sell, I don't know, macro coaching or something. Like I keep saying to people, food beats supplements, but no one wants to say that anymore because I can't sell you protein powder. Be sure to use my coupon code. Yeah, it's, I can't even make one up quick. Coupon codes. Anyways, point is, your training log, it's a really valuable tool. Like, it's more than just looking back at last week and saying, oh, I'm going to beat the training log. Last week I did, 5 sets of 10 with 135. So this week I'm going to do 5 sets of 10 with 140. No. Forget that. Where it becomes really useful is like when you look back and go, wow, 10 years ago, this is what I did. Okay. Yeah, I see why that worked. And a lot of the shit that you used to do, yeah, here's a Warren Zevon line for you. The shit that used to work won't work now, okay? There is no way I could do the type of training I did back then. Like, I was a young man. I was healthy. I can't imagine trying to do that kind of volume ever again. The running and the swimming all day long. I could never do it again, but I see why it worked. Does that make sense? And keep that in mind when you're training athletes. Some of the guys I'm training, they're half my age. Like, the guys I'm training are 18 to 22. Like, you don't train them like a 40-year-old man. You train them the way that you train an 18 to 22-year-old. Like, they have a completely different response to training than you do. They have a different training age than you do. Stop and think about that. When you're 40, you can't train the way you did at 20. This shouldn't surprise people. You can't drink at 40 the way you did at 18. At 18, you could get absolutely fucking plastered, wake up the next day and not have a hangover. And, at even 35, if you drank like that, you would wake up with a hangover. So, no, your body can't handle things the same way. It shouldn't surprise you. And that's really the biggest value of training logs, is the ability to look back in time and know exactly what you did, because we all have cloudy memories. Like, if I just went by memory, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I squatted 405. Why can't I do that now? And it's like, well, then you pull your training log up, and it's like, yeah, so you were 185 pounds, and you had knee wraps with a belt. This is a totally different game. So, like, when you see that, suddenly that 405 is a very different 405. And that's all I want to share with people, is just like, if you don't write it down, you can't rely on your memory. You won't remember those details, because I certainly didn't. I was sitting there thinking, like, man, I I don't understand why I can't squat as much as I used to. And it's like, well, like I'm also much lighter than I used to be, and I'm not doing powerlifting style with knee wraps and a belt, and it's not low bar. So like suddenly, oh, like am I actually weaker, or am I just smaller and doing a different type of squat, right? So that's basically how I wanted to explain it to you guys, is that you can't rely on your memory. That's why you have the value of the training log. The training log is your ability to write things down so that you don't have to rely on memory.